Oh, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, sorry. Good evening, everyone. This is a call to order for the Personnel and Contracts Committee meeting on Tuesday, January 31st, 2023, 6:30 p.m. at Aquaculture, Lord Jesus, at Central High School. In attendance, we have all of our staff. Thank you for being here tonight. And then we have board member, Mr. Joseph Lombard, board member, Albert Benahan, and board member, Joseph Kolovic. At this moment, I would like to have an approval of the meeting minutes for the last for October 11, 2022 Personnel Committee meeting. You're on mute, Mr. Lombard.
So moved.
Second, any updates, any changes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, meeting minutes are approved. The next one is November 9th, 2022 Contracts Committee meeting.
Move to accept the minutes.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, meeting minutes have been approved. The next item on our agenda is discussion and referral to the full board to solicit for bids for the food service equipment and refrigerator contract. And I believe that is
Kioma.
Mr. Kioma.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening.
All right. So for tonight, we are requesting approval to go out to bid. We need a new vehicle for the shipping department, and that's currently budgeted within our department. We just have to bring that out to the board for approval. The second one will be for equipment maintenance and refrigeration. The refrigeration system in the nutrition center, it's failing, and we're going to need to have some emergency repairs done. So attached, we have some quotes that we'll need to put out to bid for that repair. And our food service repair contract is also up, and we'll need to put that out to bid so we can have a solid contract with repairs.
Okay. I'm going to open up the floor for any questions. Mr. Lombard, do you have any questions concerning this?
No questions.
Mr. Sokolovic, do you have any questions?
Yeah, is this coming from the food and nutrition budget?
Yes, it's from the food and nutrition budget.
So it does, okay, awesome. Is it regular funds or any ESSER funds could be tapped or no?
No, just regular funds.
Just regular funds. And the vans from one of the 5-year capital plans we approved previously?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now let the record reflect, Mr. Albert Benahan. I know you were listening online, but do you have any questions or concerns?
Yes, I have a question. Good evening, everyone. I know last year they say they really fit something in one of the freezers or refrigeration for the nutrition center. Now they say they're going to fix something else, because I know last year they bring something to the board to be fixed. So I just want to know, is it the same one or is it something different now?
I'm not 100% sure what was brought to the board last year, but this is a completely different problem. This is the entire walk-in refrigeration and walk-in freezer systems that's failing. It's been bandaged for over 10 years. Our nutrition center boiler room is constantly leaking because of the refrigerant, and we need to update this immediately. We're not even using condenser systems, and that's the main refrigeration tool needed.
All right, thank you. It's Mr. Chair, I don't feel that's right that he came with like a new director and need to find something had to be fixed for so many years. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the formers was doing. So he got to come and fix something that had to be done a long time ago because it's about the food of our students. So I don't know. That wasn't acceptable for me. So no more comments, no more question. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I don't have any questions. I did review this, and my questions would have been the funding source, as Mr. Sokolovic has already brought to your attention. So if there are no other questions for this, I will entertain a motion to push this to the full board.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, I'll make sure that this is added on the agenda for the session at the next board meeting.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Going back to our agenda, the next agenda item is discussion and possible action on the RFP public relations firm.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everyone? So this is the continuation of the discussion we were having regarding the public relations firm RFP. At the last meeting, the board recommended that we come to the contracts committee prior to being here. We've had it reviewed by legal, and this is the final document that needs to be approved by this committee and then referred to the full board. Just to reiterate, the 5 areas of requesting the RFP are the risk assessment, mitigation and consultation services, reputation management, full service crisis communication planning, crisis communication training for administrators and senior staff in the district, and the development and implementation of crisis response plans, including training. I'd like to just bring attention to one area of this RFP. Under the review committee, it does state that, I have the right page. It states that the committee of the whole is to review it from all of the members of the board. I don't know if you want to keep that in there, because I think as we are undergoing another review of another RFP, it's becoming a little bit difficult to get everybody on the same page in terms of scoring. So maybe instead of having all the members, maybe we could just assign one member if you feel that a member of the board needs to be on this committee. We also have the superintendent or a designee, the chief financial officer designee is on here, the executive director of human resources is on here, and the director of special education or designee is on here. So I'll leave that up to you in terms of a recommendation.
Okay. I'll open it up. Mr. Lombard, do you have any questions or concerns about this issue, agenda item?
I want to understand. So currently, it says the scoring of the results of the RFP must have all board members in the committee. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's how it's reading now. And again, I think it's a lot.
Is that all board members on the committee, on the personnel?
It says here,
contract?
members of the Board of Education Committee of the whole, which means
That's all of
everyone.
us.
Yeah, I don't see where that's necessary. I think that's too cumbersome.
Yeah.
I would say that, a representative from the contracts committee would make sense. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Okay, I can change that if you guys are all in agreement.
I'm just putting that out there. I guess we have to decide on that.
Yeah. Mr. Sokolovic?
Yeah, I agree. It's unnecessary. We very rarely serve on scoring committees. It usually comes, especially like with my experience with teaching and learning and other contracts, it comes to us and we read over it. We review the scores. And if we have any questions about any of the scores the scoring committee had, we would question that. And then we would make a decision there on the committee level. Like it would go out to all the people on there and maybe one other person, and then they would bring it back to the contracts committee, and then the contracts committee and the board members would look at it and say, okay, this is the high score. And if we see anything like questionable, we say, why did this person rate this, and that? And
Right.
then it would go back to them and they would tell us why they rated something. But most 99% of the time, it's like the scores are accepted at face value and there's no issues with them. And we approve based on those scores.
Yeah, I wonder why any board members at all are on that score.
And
I think it was placed on there. Again, it doesn't make sense for it to be there, but I didn't want to remove it without bringing it to you first.
is it possible to template from the search firm
No,
that I stuck in there somehow? Because I've never seen a committee of a whole.
well, that one you voted on, that one you,
Right.
you
Yeah.
specifically requested that the committee,
Yeah.
the search committee be the whole ball.
That should probably be, as a practice, the only thing we get
Right.
totally involved like that. Otherwise, we bog ourselves down and.
Yeah, I agree. If it's not required, because.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
I wouldn't think it'd be necessary. I agree with what you're saying, Joe, that, let the people who know what they're scoring do the scoring and then bring it to us to decide.
Okay, so I guess
Yeah.
with your permission, then I'll just remove that line off from the RFP.
Okay.
And everything else is finalized, ready to go to the board.
Mr. Benahan?
Yes, Mr. Tony, you said, now they have the board members, but before they don't have it. Why before it was no board members involved? Now they, why not? No, before, why not? And now why they want to add the board members? Just curious, so,
In this particular RFP, it was always there,
okay.
but I think it's cumbersome to have it all there. I don't think it's needed. So I
Okay,
didn't want to remove it without bringing it to this committee for discussion and approval.
Mhm.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you. No more questions.
I agree with everyone. It was funny that we're having this conversation because we were talking about this prior to the meeting starting. So I'm glad that we're able to address that here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna actually entertain a motion to bring this. Wait, before I do that, does this need to go back through finance?
No,
No? Okay. All right. So that I know that was like, everyone was trying to figure out where the money and stuff like that. So it's okay to go straight to the full board.
yes.
Okay, so Mr. Lombard, I'll entertain a motion for this particular item.
Want to finish the motion?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. I'll entertain a motion to bring the RFP for the public relations firm to the full board for approval with removal of the language that requires all board members to be a part of the selection process.
So moved.
All in favor? Oh, second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. I'm gonna go back up. I skipped over one agenda item by mistake. And for the record, I just wanna let it be known that everyone that's speaking that's not already here, just make sure you mention your name for the record. So that was Mr. Pires, for anyone who didn't know, that was Mr. Pires. And then before with Mr. Kioma from the Food Nutrition Department. So anyone else, just for the record. The next agenda item is this presentation of the updated organizational supervisorial responsibilities and job descriptions of the Board of Education. Yep, Sam, you're on, and come join us. I'll move over.
Good evening. I'm Denise Altro Dixon, the Executive Director of Human Resources. As indicated on the board, we broke it down, starting from the interim superintendent, and we went down to at least the supervisory level. It's my understanding that there was a request for a more detailed work organizational chart, but that would take us a lot more time. But I can add in, if there are questions about where certain categories fall under, I may be able to answer them at least verbally. But as you can see, under the superintendent, immediately we have the school security, which is still Captain Faldrack, and Sergeant Tresha Parks also oversees the school security now. And then we have the superintendent's office staff. She has the executive administrative assistant, the administrative aide, and the secretarial program assistant. We did underneath that, you have the CFO, Marlene Siegel, and she oversees the budget and financial department, business department, data management, food and nutrition, grants, human resources, IT, payroll and benefits, and I believe she oversees school facilities.
That's
Not
not
sure.
George.
I'm not sure.
Well, no, but it is George Garcia, but I think it might fall under the CFO. Nurses is listed there, but usually in the past, school nursing has always reported directly to the superintendent. Then we have the deputy superintendent, Dr. Karen Baldwin. She oversees the high schools, BMA, Bridgeport Military Academy. She oversees some of the specialized services, psychological services, social work department, speech, language, and pathology. She also oversees the special ed department, which is Shemaine Johnson oversees the special ed department. Within that, she oversees the BLC Learning Center and Skane School. And then we have the director of counseling and parent partnership. And underneath that, it broadens out for guidance counselors, homeschooling, SEL, and community family engagement. Under executive directors, Dr. Morgan, she oversees a portion of the pre-K to 8 schools. She oversees talented and gifted and the 21st century education liaison. Mr. Planis oversees, again, the pre-K through 8 schools, as well as he oversees mathematics. Dr. Jenkins is the chief academic officer. She oversees, again, some of the elementary schools, pre-K to 6. She oversees early childhood, the assessment, ESL bilingual, which is Anna Sousa Martins. She oversees performing visual arts, the science department, adult education, and the detention center.
Thank you. I know you have also within it is the job descriptions for everyone. So what I'll do is I'll start with Mr. Lombard. Mr. Lombard, do you have any questions or concerns concerning the organizational chart and job descriptions?
No.
Great. Mr. Sokolovic?
Yes. I want to start at the top. Board of Education, interim superintendents, that's fine. Security, Captain Paul Gregg and Sergeant Tisha Parks. Now, they're paid through the city, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and because this has been a point of discussion before. Who sets the schedule for the security guards and decides who comes? So like today we got a basketball game. Who decided we got 2 police cars and rather than 2 security
It
guards?
would be Captain Gregg and Sergeant Parks.
And so they are not technically our employees, but they supervise our employees.
They're not technically, we do not pay them, but they are responsible for the safety of our schools. Yes.
So in their assigned duties, do they have supervisory capacity over the school security and all that?
Yes.
So should they not have a link beneath that area going to school security guards and?
Again, this chart did not.
Oh, it doesn't have direct.
No, this stopped at the Morris City Hall, the central administration.
Okay, so those. Community engagement. Okay, community engagement. Now, under Dr. Baldwin, go down to Director of Specialized Instruction and the Director of Counseling and Partnerships. And it goes to family engagement and all that. Now, I know I've asked this before that Director of Counseling and Partnerships has no supervisory authority, correct?
Say that the Director
Of Counseling and Parent Partnerships.
She does. She oversees the SEL, which is Lynn Stevens. She oversees the homeschooling guide, and oversees all the guidance counselors assigned to the schools. The community family engagement, a lot of that is they go out to the homes.
Like not
No,
visit?
Yeah, home visits, and she works with school tardiness, truancy. I'm sorry, truancy.
All right, yeah, I'm mostly concerned with the community family engagement portion of that because that involves principals. Can she supervise a principal that is not meeting their obligations under PAC PTSOs or school governance councils? Can she give that principal an order to tighten up, or does she need to go through another director to do that?
She does not supervise or oversee principals. It would have to take another avenue.
Have to bump back up to, I guess, Dr. Baldwin on that track.
Or one of the other executive directors, depending on the school.
Ah, okay, thank you. Yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Benahan?
Yes, I'm worried, now we're curious about the security. They don't work for us, they work for the city, but they in charge for the security from Bridgeport School. And they get paid for the city. Do you know we have a person, and we have it, it's a lead. Let me see how I can call him. Like I forgot the word, but he's have that position, that's his title. And I believe I asked you last year is job description, I forgot the name right now, that he's the one in charge for check those security from all schools to see how they were, busy, to how everything go around. It's like a lead guard,
There is no lead guard.
but that's his title.
I'm pretty sure there is no lead guard. I remember having this discussion last year. I think that job title exists, but if I'm right, no one holds that position.
And I believe I sent it for our committee facility about the security, about the lead guard. It's in our email. I can talk to you about that later because I know we have them. That's his title, that's his uniform that was set,
Who, and I'm sorry, I didn't hear the name of the person.
For the record, I'm not gonna say the name, so I will tell you after.
Okay.
And also if something's wrong, if something happened, one of the security guards, something like that, and we tell them no, let's see, Sergeant Park. And let's give a sample that she said, oh, you don't need to give me orders. For education, they don't pay us. What's gonna be the next step?
Repeat that one more time.
If something's wrong with the security guards, and we had to report with Sergeant Parks or Captain Greg, they come and say you cannot tell us what to do with the security guard because we don't get paid from the board of education. We get paid from the city. What's going to be the next steps?
Are you saying if Sergeant Parks or Captain Greg refuse to follow order or directive from someone?
Yeah, if something's wrong, something happened, and we report then, this is what happened. They can say, oh, I know what I'm doing. That's why I'm the captain. No, that's why I'm the sergeant. Don't tell me what to do because, we don't get paid from board education. We get paid from the city.
Yes, they get paid by the city, but
Yeah,
they
we know that.
still work within the Board of Education. They have a duty and responsibility to the Board of Education.
Okay.
As far as if there were to be any disciplinary matters taken, that would go up the chain of command in the police department.
Okay.
But they've always reported to, in the past, I believe, the superintendent, that they would directly report to the superintendent, Captain Greg.
No more questions for now.
Okay, Mr. Sokolovic?
Yeah, I got to follow up on something Mr. Benahan said. So if, for example, if superintendent, like let's use tonight's thing. We got 2 police cars here and a couple of security guards floating about because obviously it's big events happening today. And would Superintendent Perrin be able to give? Would the superintendent be able to give the security personnel an order not to have a second police car here?
She could not order the police department. She could recommend and discuss things. She could probably use the word order more easily if it's the security.
Correct. I'm sorry.
But I do not believe she has the authority to give orders to the police department. Again, it's always been that they work closely together, the superintendent and
Right.
the Captain Greg and now Sergeant Parks, where any recommendations or suggestions or concerns are brought to their attention. And if they agree, disagree, or whatever, I mean, conversations have been held in the past regarding issues between what person A thinks is necessary for security or events versus what person B. But because I know that in the past, there's been discussions about it to address it.
Yeah, let's give another scenario, just a scenario. So, because these things could possibly come up, and we've got policy about police being inside the schools. So, if the captain of the police department so chose to send a police officer to patrol the halls of one of our high schools, would the superintendent be able to override that?
Again, it depends on the circumstances. If it's a safety issue, I would like to think we're not going to, since the city of Bridgeport is short-staffed in the police department, that we are going to assign a police officer to walk the hallways of a high school or any school unnecessarily. I know that a lot of planning goes into the details of what events are staffed with how many police officers or how many security guards. I know that when I'm working for labor relations and working for the city and dealing with the police and security from that end, it's not a decisions made simply.
Right.
They do look into things. They do take into account the environment, what's going on, even what's going on in society as a whole this week, all play into how they determine what would be the most appropriate security standards or safety standards to apply to a situation.
Right, understood. And all this being said is not directed at the current people, but some of us are getting up there in age and maybe retiring soon and replaced with somebody with a whole different viewpoint on these things. Like there might be, not always going to be, and I can mention the name because it's a complimentary faction. I mean, Greg has been great with the schools basically and stepping back from some situations and trying to mediate things. But Captain Greg may retire someday, and there might be a captain that takes over that's not so inclined to do such mediations and avoid things. That's why I think it's an important thing to think about. Yes.
Right, and as you know, what ifs is nonstop with every situation.
Correct.
But I know, and I think that the Board of Ed has always maintained a very good working relationship with the police department. And even now, as we're dealing with the new chief and our interim superintendent, I'm sure that as they are all getting their feet wet in the new roles that they're playing, that the communications be kept up and hopefully the solid relationship that we have currently between the Board of Ed and the police department will continue. Mr. Benahan, I apologize. We do have a lead security guard.
Thank you.
There is one.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep, Ms. Baptiste Perez. Oh, let the record reflect Ms. Baptiste Perez is here. I'm sorry. Do you have any questions on this item?
I do, but it's more specified than what's on the chart. But Ms. Ultra Dixon, this question is more for you. Do you have a team of staff for like recruitment and that component of human resources under you that assists?
Sorry, I hurt my back. So, I don't. So this is one of the things we have been discussing a lot recently. Is I don't have a talent management, specified talent management in my office right now. It's we are actually for the first time staffed much more than we have been in the past. But within my department, most of us all work on trying to do the recruitment, and once we're into the main hiring season. Right now, I have 2 teachers on special assignment assigned to my department. We call them the seekers and the keepers. They are in charge of overseeing new teachers. Michael Brosnan works a lot on the different programs, student teachers, student interns, and all the different fellowships and partnerships we have going with the local schools. We also have a retired principal, Sharon Piverato, who is also now, those 3 would fall more under the recruiting title than my other staff, which we do deal with the recruitment and things like that, but we are also tasked with dealing with much more the day-to-day human resources aspect. But talent management is something that we have been trying to develop more. I spoke to the interim superintendent about this idea. I spoke to Marlene Siegel, is to create more of a talent management within our department and have those 3, at least definitely Michael Brosnan and Steve Correa, pushed into those titles, since that is what they do a lot of already.
Thank you.
Mr. Lombard?
Thank you. Ms. Alter-Dixon, how are changes to this organizational tree made and by who? Since these are the upper level supervisory positions, down to what level are changes made by the superintendent or interim superintendent? And then how are other changes made and by who, as far as, department heads and who's leading what area? How is that done so that, this chart might look different one day? How are those changes made?
A lot of our positions within this, the superintendent controls. Ultimately, and obviously a lot of the executive, when we're talking about educators or the certified staff, this level, it's not only the superintendent, but it's also the Board of Education, the Personnel Committee that dictate the makeup of a lot of this work org. But it's the superintendent that is the biggest driving point. She has the authority, she being our current superintendent, has the authority to hire and decide on most, if not all, of the blue, orangey-ish red, green.
You only got one more color left.
I'm sorry. And
Hey, everything.
the only thing where it stops, like at this level, is when we get into the school levels and everything. But yeah, ultimately it is this sitting superintendent who is the driving force behind who sits under these titles.
Okay,
And
so
the Board of Ed.
thank you. So also that would include moving one area that's currently under one blue box to another blue box, right? It's moving things around.
Yes.
Would it also include adding and removing areas as well, or is that voted on by the board? So for example, where there's, let me find something that I can imagine. Where there's under the director of counseling, there are currently 4 areas, 4 in yellow. Could something be added, a 5th area, a new focus area, or even removed, by the superintendent, and
Yes.
or by that director?
Not necessarily. The director could not do it without approval.
Okay.
So Ms. Roca Reyes would need approval ultimately of the superintendent.
So the whole makeup, what's there or not there, is determined by the acting, whoever is the superintendent. Is there any process that person has to go through, or are they pretty much given carte blanche to make changes as they see fit?
No, a lot of anyone, a certified staff above a teacher, so any administrators, assistant principals, no, principals and above, I believe, has to go through the personnel committee for their input. Yes, ultimately, the superintendent makes the final decision, but the Board of Ed has input on principals and higher for educators. So that would be the blues and some of the reddish orange color.
Okay. So then, an example, let's just say, this wouldn't happen for obvious reasons, but let's say the superintendent wanted to move mathematics under Dr. Morgan and talented and gifted under Mr. Planis. That's something the superintendent could do, move things around.
Yes.
At will. Okay. Yeah, I thought so.
Yes.
I just wanted that to be clear, so it was understood that this is all, a lot of this is at will of the superintendent, these upper level things. So as it needs to be. But okay, thank you.
Any further, Ms. Baptiste Perez?
I want to follow up with Mr. Lombard's comment regarding the superintendent with the structure of the higher level principals and executive office. Because he emphasized at will. To what extent does the superintendent have the authority, or I guess power, to determine the contract structure for the executive staff? So whether they're at-will employees or contracted employees, and at what point does the board step in for that?
The supervisor's BCAS contract lists what supervisors fall under their contract. So that includes some of the, that includes the reddish orange certified staff, the executive directors, deputy superintendent, the blue on top are not, the executive directors and the deputy superintendent are not affiliated with the union. So the superintendent can create their job contracts, but in the past we followed the same format with the executive directors. The deputy superintendent, I believe, that was created, I believe, using prior contracts, and we just brought it up into the current time. But the contracts are also reviewed with our legal department. I do not think the Board of Ed has input on the terms and conditions of those contracts. I know that you may have. I don't recall. I apologize if you had input on some of the terms and conditions for the deputy superintendent.
When the deputy superintendent, if she's contracted, which I believe she is, because it's an amount over the threshold that we give the superintendent authority for, that was something that should have been passed through our contracts committee, correct?
If that's what the bylaws say, then yes. But I'm not familiar with that section of the bylaw, and so I wouldn't. But if the bylaws say that if a contract is being created with an employee that exceeds X amount of money, it is to be presented to the contracts committee or the Board of Education. Then if her salary fell above that level, then yes, it should have been brought before the Board of Education.
Thank you.
And I have a question. How often is the organizational chart updated? Is this a yearly thing? Because my hopes is that as the superintendent and whoever else, if Ms. Parent or whomever else decides to take this role, that it's updated often to be brought before the board, because I don't think any of us have seen anything like this in a while. Well, it's not since I've been on the board, and Mr. Sokolovic has been on here for a while. So I'm just interested to see how often it's updated. I know that positions she may add, or the superintendent may add, but it's kind of good to have a refresher if, every once in a while, so we know exactly what's going on, to who report to who, and,
Right. So I think your question is kind of twofold. This chart updates on no given schedule. It could be updated tomorrow because we can have a shifted, someone can leave or someone can be hired or things like that. I think what I'm gathering from you is the communication between the board and we'll say City Hall to update you on any changes in this work org. I think that when there is a change in the work org, that a new chart, thank you, should be sent to you all. Yes.
So then my other part of the question is, what of these positions that are currently there are still standing outside of, because I know we can't technically operate a district without a superintendent. However, like what are the blue boxes, I'm gonna say blue boxes, that stay no matter what? Like, in order to run the district. So at least we know if some of these red boxes or reddish boxes do move around, we at least know that the main ones that are at the top are gonna stay. Does that make sense?
Yes, but for example, prior to Dr. Morgan, Mr. Planas, Dr. Jenkins coming into their titles, there was listed as deputy, I think they were also called deputy superintendent or assistant superintendents.
Okay.
So I don't think any job title is set in stone.
Okay.
That I think sometimes when a superintendent comes in, they see the need to perhaps shift things around and reword or restructure things.
Okay.
I think that's what happened when former Superintendent Testani came in. He changed the titles and moved it to like the executive directors and things like that. He brought back a deputy superintendent. I don't think there had been one for a few years prior to now Dr. Baldwin. So the only thing that stays is technically really the superintendent and the Board of Ed.
Okay. No questions for me. Anyone else?
You have Mr. Lombard first.
Mr. Lombard?
Thank you. I'm aware, for example, my employer uses ADP. I don't know if there's a similar type of a software that's used here because some people are salaried, some people are hourly, some people work for different sources. But I bring it up because I know that the organizational chart is something that's live within ADP. And when someone is hired or leaves, that update is made there and it's instantaneous, and anyone can search through the organizational chart at any time. And then these branches keep opening and opening and opening and opening, and you can track it all the way down to the lowest level position up to the highest level position. And is there something available like that in the systems that we currently have?
Probably within the CFO's documents. One of the things that we discussed in last night's DEI committee was that HR has never had an appropriate HRIS system or program put in place that we could track all of this data. We are still dealing with a lot of paper trails and things like that, and Microsoft and Excel. But we are now in the works of trying to create a more easily accessible and modern HRIS system. We have a contract signed, and my office and payroll and benefits is using it as well. We are just going through the initial process of testing it and being trained on it. So we're hoping by the summer months when we have our peak hiring season that this database will be up and running, and we can then plug in existing employees and it would track this a lot better.
Okay, yeah, it's a very useful tool.
I'm sure it is.
Any user at any login level, can access the organizational chart for the entire institution. So it's very useful.
Right. I mean, I could ask the IT department I mean, if we can always post this on the Board of Ed's website, and we would make updates as they occur.
I think that's a good idea.
That's fine. I will work with the IT department to have something uploaded, and I will make sure my department is updating the chart as necessary.
Yeah, that's an important task, because like you said, it
Yeah.
could change regularly, things could continue to change, so if we're gonna post it, we wanna make sure it's kept up to date. Thank you.
Okay, now there's an alternative reason that I brought this up, because we're always accused in budget season of being top heavy. Okay, I'm looking at right now comparative district Waterbury. Can you tell me where our Director of Pupil Services is? We don't have one, right?
No, we don't have someone under the title of Director of Pupil Services.
Director of College Career Readiness,
You know, I haven't-
No, we don't have that title.
Director of Equity and Inclusion,
No, we do not have that title.
Chief Turnaround Officer.
I don't even know what that is. No, we don't have that. No,
Yeah, just bear with me for a minute because this is important. Director of Communications.
we do not have a Director of Communications.
We've got three assistant superintendents, one directly for personnel. Do we have that?
No,
How many assistant superintendents or deputies we have?
we have 3 executive directors.
Oh, no, they got more directors. Just this is,
I think executive directors, that was what replaced, what were they called, assistant superintendents
Mhm.
prior to?
because we got academic supervisors as well. I mean, if you look at other districts and their top echelon, I think it might be beneficial. I know it's not part of the organizational chart. Maybe I'll bring it into finance to compute all their salaries, because last time I say you need to cut from the top, you need to cut from the top. But if you cut the entire staff of 45 Lyron Terrace, you don't even make a dent in our deficit. And I think that's something that we need to be prepared for in finance. Anyway, I'm off track. So I thought it was important to raise up.
All right. Okay, Mr. Benahan and then Ms. Baptiste Perez.
Ladies first.
Oh, I just had a quick question. What HR system are we converting to for the district if it's not ADP or Rippling?
We're using Frontline. So we use Frontline already for our absence recording and our some of our initial job posting. Now we are expanding our use of them to bridge into the HR and a little into the payroll, where everyone's information will be uploaded electronically in the database.
Is that typical for most municipalities to be behind
No.
technology?
No. It's not, most human resources or districts have a type of program in place.
And so from the chart, this falls eventually under Ms. Siegel and the Board of Ed's budget. So that's another place where we're at a deficit and it puts us extremely behind other districts.
It falls under, if I'm right, it falls under my budget, human resources budget. This,
Yeah, but on the chart.
oh, right, under the CFO, right. Yes, it'll fall under that. As far as whether or not it puts us in a deficit compared to other districts in the way we run things, yes, it may take us a little longer to get data for things, but it will help things in the long run. But I don't think it has really had an impact on what we do on a day-to-day basis, in that when something needs to be done, I mean, we keep our paper trails. We do have our records within our computers and our system in HR, but this will make things easier.
Mr. Benahan?
Yes, I have a few questions for some comment. I know everything is going under Ms. Perrin, go on the why in the top, they don't say who's the supervisor, who's the boss of Ms. Perrin. Let's see the 9 board members because we are,
It's
they said board education. They don't say the name like it under. That's my comment. Second, when they said the security go after, after Ms. Perrin, and then they go to the 3 security director. Why can't I be first the 3 security director and then the security? Because I know each one of Dr. Morgan and Mr. Plana, they're on the Ms. Perrin and they have a lot of things to do. Then they go security.
Because since security reports directly to the superintendent, that's, we just made it, just like the 3 support staff listed, Ms. Santos, DeJesus, Miss Olivia, and Miss Wanda Torres. They're listed directly under the superintendent because they report directly to her.
I understand the part. It's very obviously, and everybody can see everything go through to Miss Perrin. But I find that much better have the 3 first and then the security because it's obviously that everyone had to report to Miss Perrin and then she's give the final answer. Let's put it this way. Under your department, you have around 8 people, right? Because my question is, each one of them, they have a department. Let's give it yours. So you're the director of human resource, but we don't see how many people you have, how many people you're in charge. So each one of us, or each one of blank, they have the department, right? How many people you have in each department? Like you have 8 people in your department.
Right.
The other department have around 8 or 5, whatever, they have, right? You don't have that like it's like I call like a BOE family tree. So we can see each department, how many employees they have.
We can get that. We did not include the number of staff in each office department.
Madam Chair, I would like to see that for the next time, if it's possible. Ms. Litson, to see each department, how many staff they have, to see how many people. Let's give a sample. Let Ms. Litson have 8 people in the department, and we can see how many staff we have. And then from there, we can see how the budget run. I would like to see that, please. Is it possible?
Yeah, I see no issues with that.
No more questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions on this agenda item? I know that we went through the org chart, but we also saw the job descriptions. Just want to make sure before I move on to the next one, if possible. All right, hearing none, I'm gonna go back up for our next. Thank you, Ms. Dixon.
Thank you.
And I just want to clear for those that are online, some people say, well, you guys were just talking about this, and now you're talking about this. This is a combination of contracts and personnel for anybody that's on the outside that didn't catch that coming into the meeting. The next item is discussion and possible action on the RFP interpretation and translation services.
Tony Pyrus from the business office, and I have Anna Souza Martins online to answer some of your more technical questions in terms of what these services provide. But this is basically another.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
This is
I'm
basically
sorry I
another.
couldn't be there in person, but if you have any questions, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is another RFP that was vetted by the legal department and is constructed similarly to the other RFPs and needs to be issued so that we can contract with an agency that provides translation and interpretation services for the district as a whole. Again, the cost information structure here is on a per diem per service basis, and it will be procured as usual. Ms. Souza Martins will, if we can give a little brief description of what it is, that detail of what the vendor is expected to perform, would be great.
You're on mute. There you go.
Sorry about that. Good evening again, everybody. Just Everybody, make everybody aware that we have contracted in the past, I would say the last 5 years, we have contracted 2 companies. One for Spanish specific, and the other one was a company that can provide us over 200 languages. The reason why we chose 2 companies was because for Spanish, we were able to receive a bid that was the lowest that came in terms of companies. So we have used her exclusively for Spanish, for interpretation of PPTs, translation of any documents, meetings, and so forth. We have used Linguistica for Spanish on a as-needed basis when Shoreline's interpretation was not able to provide the services. Linguistica was a little more expensive in terms of Spanish. However, they provide all of our other languages spoken by our families in Bridgeport, including sign language. So we default to them for Spanish if Shorelines is not available. And they have been able to provide us with, I would say, 99% of the languages spoken by our families, either via telephonic. We have had virtual. We've also had in-person pre-pandemic era, but after the pandemic phase, had in-person through Linguistica. We have had in-person through Shoreline's interpretation, which is the Spanish. So in essence, we have been able to meet the needs of our families, parents, students through these 2 companies. We also advertise to the parents in every building in their main office that they are provided without any charge free interpretation and or translation.
Thank you.
And just as background, the time lapse on the contract that we had with these others. So these it's time to do another RFP to make sure that the services are compatible, they're marketable, and they're affordable. So this is another way of, we're mandated to do it. So this is what it's about.
Okay. I'll open it up for questions. Mr. Lombard,
No questions.
Mr. Sokolovic.
Yes, so we're currently working under an expired contract.
No, the contract will expire on June 30th of 2023. So we're getting ready for.
Right, because I remember approving it. I don't think it was 5 years. Was it a 3-year contract, correct?
This was, I believe, the last contract. Anna, correct me if I'm wrong. It was 3 years, but we kept extending it by a year.
So we had three years with 2 possible.
Yeah, two 1 years. The problem we had with when this went out, we only had one bidder. The last time we put it out for an RFP, so we were always challenged with having someone to perform these services equitably and adequately. So, and I'd like to be optimistic. I'd like to think that we're going to get a lot more people applying for this time around, but we're not sure about that either.
And
in addition to,
yeah, I'm
I'm
sorry.
so sorry.
No, go
No,
ahead.
I was just going, no, I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to add, in addition to what Mr. Pires commented, was that we also received bids from, in terms of competitive pricing and languages that met the needs of our district families. So these 2 companies that we have dealt with for the last 5 years have provided us for specifically for the language needs of our families, as well as competitive pricing.
And are we considering a 5-year? 5 years? Okay,
Definitely.
makes sense.
Yeah. Mr. Benahan.
Yes. Hello, Ms. Martin. Good to see you. I have a question, but I don't know if it's part of that, but I
Great
just
to see you.
curious because, thanks. Just because I'm glad you're here. How many
you.
people you have in we have in the Bridgeport School translate for anyone come to the school that can help parent people that let's give a sample like Cesar Ataya, Marine School, Columbus School.
Yes.
So we have staff there that can translate and help parents when they come.
We do. So we have staff that have are able to interpret. Now, with that said, they have to be trained yearly. Okay, that's federal guidelines. So we have about 80 staff across the district that are able to provide interpretation based on training. Okay, with that said, many of those staff members do not have time to translate documents. So like I said, we have 80 that are on demand in the school. If a parent was to show up and say, I need Spanish interpretation, can you provide me with somebody? Yes, most of our buildings have that. I would say about 95% of our buildings can provide that. If they can't, they will call either Shorelines or Linguistica. That's on demand. They will provide somebody within 5 minutes to provide the interpretation. In terms of translation, we use exclusively the companies because our staff do not have the time during their workday to provide translation for documents. That takes extra time, and
Yes.
so that would demand or that would require stipends, and so we provide it to the companies.
All right, thank you. I really appreciate it. I was waiting for that, get that information. Thank you to
Great
know
to
that.
see you, Mr. Benahan.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Ms. Baptiste Perez.
Questions for Mr. Pires. Just what changes to this RFP have been implemented from the previous one 3 or 5 years ago to make it more appealing to get more bids, or there's no change?
We have not really made a lot of changes to the RFP that unless the attorneys have requested them to be made. What we need to do going forward is to make sure that these companies are notified outside of BidSync, because some might not be aware that BidSync is the vehicle by which we use to notify them of these RFPs. And again, this is for in this particular case where we expect for the number to be low, we need to make an extra effort of doing that. Maybe in local newspapers, maybe in the trade magazines that address translation services and so forth. That comes at an extra cost because we have to pay for the publication in those publications, but we might have to do that.
Are we going to do that for this RFP?
If you tell me to do it, I'll do it.
Is that something?
I think that's something for all our RFPs we need to consider, just to, whenever I hear we only have one bid, is something's.
I think history will tell us and experience will tell us the areas where we might need to do that. For example, there are services that we know we're going to get multiple bids. We don't have to incur that expense. But if we find that it's an area where we're limited in terms of the exposure, we're limited in terms of the responses, yeah, I think we should make it as a matter of practice to do that going forward.
All right. Yep, Mr. Benahan.
Ms. Martin, I heard you say stipend. Question for you, if you mind. If a staff, they work in one of the school, but the job is not to translate, that staff, they can pay a stipend to help and the school, let's say she or he's doing something different, but his job is not for translate. He can do it. Then he can get stipend, he can get, he get paid for do that.
Yes, that's an option for our staff as well. Yes, if they are trained, yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Martin. No more questions.
Yep.
I want to follow up on that question Albert just asked, or Mr. Benahan just asked. I just want to make sure I understand. If a staff member is doing something outside of the norm and it requires translation, they have to be certified or trained, but they can just do it on the whim and the district's going to pay for that? Or shouldn't they seek approval from their building or supervisors before going forward with translation services before we pay them?
Absolutely. So I apologize. I should have answered in terms of the steps that we follow. So the first step is that if they are seeking that opportunity, we first have to reach out to our companies. If they are not available, the companies, or if the staff can provide the translation in a more expeditious manner, then we will stipend them. In many occasions, we have not been able to secure an in-person interpreter. However, our staff is able to provide in-person interpretation at after-school meetings, and the administrator and myself, the administrator always provides a request for interpretation or translation. It comes through my office. We usually have a conversation if it's a staff member, and I always review all of the requests. And so if it doesn't fall within the parameters of our interpretation company, and if it's, like I said, something that's of urgency, then we will allow staff on a stipend basis, yes, to provide that service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Mr. Sokolovic?
I'll follow up on something Ms. Baptiste Perez said. We're doing a little thing here. Now, these stipend things and utilization, are they utilized for like IEPs and PPTs? Because that having a staff member in the building provide that translation service for somebody who needs a PPT or an IEP may be a bit of a conflict of interest.
Most of our PPTs are held through our companies. If it is an impartial interpreter in the building where they have no interaction in terms of the student, the parent, and the case, we will at times allow for an interpretation to be conducted by a staff member. But again, they do not receive a stipend during the school day.
Now,
But I would say 99%, we're using the interpretation company.
Right.
Companies.
Yeah, I got a bit of a concern about that 9%. Although they have no interaction with the student, they have interaction with the principal and their colleagues who may have influence over that interpreter.
So they receive training, and part of the training is that you are providing a word-to-word interpretation. You are not providing any guidance to the parent. You are not providing any type of additional service other than a word-to-word interpretation. So they do have to attend a yearly interpretation translation training in order to provide that service.
So now I have a follow-up to the follow-up. My question is these IEPs or special meetings being recorded to be able to vouch that everything is said properly? I know that they're being trained, but if they are staff members, I would wonder, you yourself may not be in that meeting, and the person that may be giving the IEP may not even know the language that's being said. So how do we know specifically that it isn't being misinterpreted or anything is said out of the way, are these being recorded? Is that even legal to do that? I don't know. I'm just curious to find out, how do we hold that person accountable in that role if they are a staff member that, from the building?
So to answer your question, as far as I know, we do not record any meetings, whether we use an interpretation company or we use staffing. I would say that over the years, we've had less staff provide interpretation at PPTs and translation for that specific reason, for the impartiality. And so really our staff is stepping in more if there is an issue with our interpretation companies. They're not able to provide the service and it's an emergency PPT. But for the most part, I would say 99% of our PPTs are held through the companies. And like I said, our interpreters have to receive training, yearly training, where they go through protocols in terms of what is impartiality and professionalism. So that's part of the training. I can't speak for what happens at the PPTs, but I will tell you that most of the complaints are not coming from PPTs. It's more of the parents that walk into a building and need interpretation and may feel a little frustrated with, the interpretation that's being offered to them. But other than that, the PPTs and the translation of IEPs, we have had some surveys from parents, and they've been very positive for the parents that choose to complete the surveys.
Okay. Mr. Sokolovic.
Yeah, then having said what I said, I don't doubt the integrity of our staff. I get paid the big bucks to look for problems where they may not exist, and just to anticipate things and just to make sure we're covered as a district from any liabilities. God bless our staff for stepping in and providing these services.
Yes. All right. I hear or see no other questions. At this moment, I will entertain a motion to push the RFP interpretation and translation service to the full board for approval.
So moved.
Second, any questions, concerns? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you so much, Ms. Martin. The next item on our agenda is discussion and possible action on entering into a contract of social work services provided by GBAB. And then in parentheses, we have SPPT. I'm assuming they're going to explain what that is. What you're going to explain about.
I don't have that.
Oh,
Yes.
hi.
It is. I have that one. Good evening, everyone. I'm Nadira.
Good evening.
I am the Director of Grants Development and Management. I have two contracts that are on the agenda for tonight. The first one is related to an award that we received from the state. It is called the Supports for Pregnant and Parenting Teens program.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys are shaking your head. You're familiar. So this has been a program that's been along for a really, really long time. The federal government actually transitioned it out back in 2021 due to lots of different things happening over the last couple of years. They provided funding again for this cycle. While it's not mandatory, we did decide to make our proposal a little bit stronger, and also tacking to what we did in the past is include a father involvement service under this grant. Of course, it's for parents. We have social workers that are focused on the mothers and those mothers that are in our high schools, etc. And we did not have a father component, which really required us having a male person provide those services. And so as we were looking at putting together a really strong proposal, we did look to the community. We knew that GBAP had actually picked up this service when the funding actually ran out a couple of years ago. So when we put together the proposal, the idea of subcontracting this particular work to them came up. And unfortunately, Mr. Young, who's in charge of both of these programs, were not able to join us tonight. So if you have really in-depth questions, I can only attempt to answer as much as I can, but I'm definitely not the subject matter expert in the particular items.
All right, thank you. Open it up for questions. Mr. Lombard?
No questions.
Mr. Sokolovic?
Could you come back to me, please?
Sure. Ms. Baptiste, no questions? I have no questions concerning it, so it's back to you.
Yeah, I got a question, but I'm trying to get the packet open to get to the specific area. It has to do with somewhere along the line. One of the two contracts before us is a line for the mayor to sign off on. Is this a joint process? It's a program between the city and the Board of Ed? And if so, how much dollars is the city contributing and how much dollars is the Board of Ed contributing? And if not, why does the mayor have to sign off on the school program?
Wonderful question. So we just had a lot of things going on, clearly. We sent these back to legal for them to review and verify. And I'm going to really explain to you that part of the packet that we had that was including the subcontracts they were working on, we had some other items which really were aligned with ESSER funding for our YEP program. Yeah. And that template looks like what they pulled for this template. Okay. And I apologize, I did not catch that. Thank you, Mr. Sokolovic. We will actually have that removed. It's not applicable. This is not a program that's being run through the city, and it's required the mayor to sign off.
Perfect.
Right, is that the one that because I still don't have it open to the
No,
bid,
that
was one.
Yeah, that one's not on this one. It'll be on the next meeting.
Yeah,
this one was more pressing.
Correct. I have a lot of things together. Yeah. But thank you, great question. It definitely should not be there. It was in the template that we received, and we will make sure that's removed prior to if this is approved by you and moving to what signature.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Good catch. Yeah, that was for the previous one. The next one. Mr. Benahan, do you have any questions?
Not at this moment.
All right, so hearing no questions, I will entertain, let me go all the way back up. Sorry, this is the longest packet.
No, mine says more.
You can punch the number in too.
But it never works for me. It's so just give me 1 second.
You're on the phone, that's when it finds more fast. Just in the tablet.
Oh my God.
Oh, Jesus.
Don't judge us. This is a long packet.
I understand completely.
All right, I beat you, Joe. The next item, I'll entertain a motion to enter into to push this contract before the full board, which is entering into a contract of social work services provided by GBAP.
So moved.
Second, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, this will be on the next meeting for the Board of Ed. The next discussion item is discussion and possible action on entering into a contract of social work services provided for homeless, I think that's supposed to be homelessness, through GBAP as well. So that's the other part of this contract. Go ahead, Ms. Clark.
Yes, so this is another award we received from the state. It's actually called Homeless and Youth and Children Program. Within that particular proposal, the state, this is obviously ESSER money. When the state put it together, the packet required us to have a community-based organization, which is referred to as a CBO, to help provide wraparound services for this particular segment of our school kids. And so as we were looking at what we would be able to provide, GBAP happened to, again, have all of these particular services. They happen to have a van so they could help us with the transportation of these homeless students. They had staff that could help with crisis intervention, help provide hygiene, personal items, et cetera, et cetera. And so they were chosen as our CBO. The subcontract is for, I think, as you may have noticed, a very large amount. The state is giving us over $300,000. And as a CBO, it was required that we would give them a percentage of what we're receiving. So it's over 2 years. At this point, we're very compressed for time. So we're asking for this contract to be issued before we're getting closer to school closing and not being able to provide as many services as we can, and then we would be able to switch over into the next year and get this tied up.
Thank you. Mr. Lombard, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Sokolovic, any questions?
Yeah, I'm just still catching up on looking at where each one is. This one is ESSER funded, correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Is this a new stream of money, or is this already the money that's jointly combined with the city that we've already approved?
Yes.
Back in?
No, this is a new stream of money. Every day something new shows up. So the state got a lot of ESSER money and they are putting it into different buckets under their guidance. So this happened to be another strand and they made it into this homeless youth program.
And is the city contributing an equal portion?
Oh, no, this has nothing to do with the city. So again, that part of the contract, it was a, just a use of that template by legal when they were returning it to us. Yes, nothing specifically to do with the city on this item.
Right, yeah, because I know we do have a bunch of joint contracts with the city to.
Correct.
So this is new.
Correct. This is new funding.
And are you aware if the city got funds as additional ESSER funding as well for other things
this
that we could
homeless
actually
program?
But this is just specifically geared towards the whole homeless program?
Correct. This,
Okay.
yes, correct. Any additional monies that the city would have received would have been under their ARP ESSER, and that, is allowed to have many different strands in it. We are still, cooperating with them under that YEP program. And so just as we had continued funds, they would have had continued funds. Any new monies they had that may be related to homeless students, we have not been contacted to cooperate with them. And I would hazard the guess that they didn't specifically get anything.
Okay. Yeah, because if they do got some, the expectation should be for them to kick in to help us out.
Definitely something for the board superintendent to talk with the mayor and the city about.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Benahan?
Hello, Ms. Clark, Mr. Benahan, how are you?
I'm terrific. How are you, Mr. Benahan?
Wonderful, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Question, this grant is gonna cover from pre-K, for the pre-K to high school, for all the students in Bridgeport School?
So yes, correct. So it's for all homeless students once identified by the social work department.
Okay, thank you. No more question.
Ms. Baptiste Perez?
No questions.
And there's no questions for me either. At this moment, I will entertain a motion to push this before the full board to enter into a contract for social work services provided by GBAF for the homeless student population.
So moved.
Second, any questions, concerns?
Just make sure the mayor's name's off.
Yes, we will. We will remove those items in that.
That wasn't really directed to a job.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, aye. Any extensions? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. I'll make sure this is added to the February 23rd meeting. Without further ado, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr.
So
Lombard,
moved.
all in
Adjourn.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We got
2 minutes, 5 seconds.